So welcome and thanks for your time today, Conrad.
Pleasure.
I'd like to start with how you first come to dance tango.
Okay. 97, I was doing lots of salsa and Latin dancing, and but as a background, I was a musician when I was young, and we used to play lots of types of music, but tango really stuck in my mind, and I wanted to sort of branch out away from that. So I just mentioned to my then salsa teacher, whether we could learn some tango, and no one was doing it in Brisbane that I knew of.
Yep.
And she then said no, I don't know how to. Then she got hold of some videos, and this was early in '98, and that's how we started. That's how I started.
Right.
But I wasn't aware of any tango before.
Okay. So what sort of music were you playing?
When I was young, you mean? I was, this was back in the 60s and 70s. At weddings, you'd play sort of continental stuff like ballroom, but it would be ballroom tango, not Argentine tango. Cha-cha, valses, that sort of social dancing.
Yeah.
Not folk dancing like that. It was more continental, because I've got an Italian background, so the sort of weddings we used to do would be more European style.
So what instrument did you play?
I played clarinet and saxophone.
Okay. Very good. Do you still play?
No.
Okay. A definite
No. I know. If you want to know, I used to play in the symphony orchestra as well, so I was quite skilled at the clarinet. But surprisingly, I'm actually very introverted, and the idea of taking solos in the symphony orchestra, because I was first clarinet, I think I found it a bit too stressful, and as a lifestyle, I didn't like the nights and the weekends, the ways away at Christmas, etc. So at the age of 24, 25, I gave it up.
Okay.
That was it.
Big change.
Big change. I became a scientist instead, which suited my introverted personality.
Right. Okay. So you were playing tango back in those days?
Yep. 60s and 70s.
Okay. All right. So were you dancing at that stage as well? Ballroom or any other salsa? Or?
No, I was just a typical teenager, rock and roll, Beatles, that sort of stuff. I wasn't interested in dance as a form of expression. I think I was just too busy studying and working while I was going for university.
Okay, so how long ago did you start dancing? Was it salsa you started with first? Or?
It was in '97 that I really started getting serious about wanting a form of expression.
Okay.
I'm not very sporty, so getting a form of expression that combined my musicality and made me more sociable was important to me. I was getting to approaching my 50s, so I just felt I needed to socialise a bit more.
Okay, so you started dancing salsa in '97. How long after that did you first tango?
A year.
Okay.
It was in February 1998 that we actually started learning tango from videos.
Yep. And so is it predominantly tango you dance now?
Yes, I do dance, still dance Latin, but only for fun. But that's it, because once I started tango, it seemed to take over both my musical interests, and it provided the physical stimulation that I needed as well.
Okay.
It's always been music. And what is it about tango music that I find interesting? Well, as a musician, I just found and I still do, that tango's got this, it captures your emotions very quickly, but the emotion's always ambivalent. There's always a bit of sadness in tango, and there's always a bit of joy in tango. You can't get a tango which is purely sad or purely happy. And the music itself is very interesting. The composition, the structure is very interesting. So that was my first. It wasn't that I wanted to dance. It was the music that captivated me.
So how would you describe the way you dance, or how does that music impact the way you express yourself?
Absolutely, yes. It's a good question, because I do respond basically to the music. I don't think of my body first and then I dance. I don't do that. So I always spend, I'd say, the first few bars just withdrawing and allowing the music to enter my brain and my feelings, and then I go. So the music for me is what is really the overwhelming reason why I dance tango. And the music actually then dictates what my body does, and of course there's my partner, etc. But basically I immerse myself in the music, and I find that totally captivating.
Very good. So how important is tango to you?
Yeah, well, it's now become my sole form of musical and I'd say physical expression as well as emotional, because the unique thing about tango is the communication that you have to have with another human being, and it's the only activity that I know of in terms of social activities that you have to be in total agreement with another human being, and you have to be very, very close physically. You have to forget yourself in order to allow the other person into your own space. And therefore, there's, for me, the communication aspect and the emotional communication becomes extremely important. It's become like an addiction, really, because if I don't dance tango for a while, I sort of feel not only the music is missing, but the emotional inner peace that I get from it. It grounds me, and it sort of focuses me into a part of human nature which is optimistic. You know, like you can forget everything when you're dancing. And not that I have terrible evil thoughts or anything, but you know, it becomes a world of reflection and cooperation and goodness. You know, it's a good thing to do, and negative thoughts and energies and attitudes are just dissipated when you dance. There's no room for negative attitudes if you're really dancing tango, because if you immerse yourself in the music and then you allow another person to communicate with you, there's no room for anything else.
A beautiful thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember what it was like when you first started dancing tango?
Yes, it was all physical because it's like tango is like it's a cross between gymnastics and chess, because gymnastics where you have to allow the body to learn patterns that the body is not typically doesn't do apart from walking. But even walking is actually becomes unnatural, and tango tends to distill it into a more simple, natural form. But apart from that, your body and your muscles have to learn particular patterns. It's like gymnastics, but it's like chess, because each body movement is also a dance movement, which can be used in conjunction with another move that you're planning, or by itself. You can either move the pawn, or you can have a few moves lined up. But each physical movement in tango is like a chess movement, and that's why when I dance I can improvise, because I don't learn sequences, but each body movement. Once I got over the gymnastics phase and my body learned particular basic moves, then I use that in an infinite sort of collection and interaction to give me a unique dance every time I dance.
So you mentioned the music dictates how you dance.
Yes.
And you can ad-lib or create as you need.
Yes.
How would you describe the style with which you dance?
Oh, style. Well, it's very fluid. I mean, to go back to what was like when I had to go to 2 or 3 years of going through the gymnastics of it. So the physical moves were very, very important. And I think that's a journey that every tango dancer that I know of has to take. You have to become a refined gymnast before you can start to improvise really. So refined according to your capacity, you don't have to be an athletic. But so after I spent the first 3 years doing every possible move, every guncho, every burrito, everything you can imagine. I'm sure I've tortured many partners. and then to then go back, the music then, when you have a repertoire of physical abilities, of physical moves, then the music and the connection takes over. I think that's the journey that every tango dancer, whether they realise it or not, it's only with hindsight that you can see that. Now, how do I dance now? Fluid is the best way I can put it. I am not tied to any particular style of tango in terms of, not the embrace. The embrace is very fluid and it changes with every partner that I dance with. It changes with the music that I dance to, and it changes within one song. So I can go from some types of music also have to be understood in historical context because they were designed, the music was designed for a particular form of dance, let's say in close embrace. They didn't know what open embrace was. So once I sort of marked all those possibilities in my head very fast, then I decide what sort of style. But fluid is your best way, and certainly always creative. That's the first thing in my mind. Yeah. So the style is secondary to the creativity, and if it's more creative with a particular partner of music, to dance close embrace and to dance very close and do very small, very very delicate steps, very always well defined. That's the other thing. My dance is well defined, and the timing has to be perfect. It's no point being physically able to dance tango if you can't absolutely nail the timing. It's the key to not only dancing in a conventional way, but if you're going to be creative, you need to get inside the music and follow the timing and what the timing is saying, because this is another area that what may have been wanting to ask me, but the timing in tango is elastic, and that's what makes it different from other dances. So timing is everything, and being able to get your body to be spot on time with the music, with the elasticity of the music, and to actually then extend it or shorten the time to create your own dance is what it's about. Style, physical style, is secondary to that. And it's dictated also by who you're dancing with. Of course, if it's a beginner, the style and the physical part is very restricted. But, the creativity doesn't have to be stifled. And what you do then with a beginner is you give them an opportunity, a feel of what it's like to lose yourself in tango by just taking them to the next step. Doesn't matter how much a beginner they are, that they've not yet experienced. And they say, oh, that's what tango is. It's the feeling. It's not what Conrad and I are doing. This is what tango is. So to answer your question, I'm very fluid because I concentrate on the base of what's inside tango. But having said that, physically, you have to know your stuff. And I'm not saying that I know a lot of tango in terms of the physicality of it, because I've got my own limits, my own body shape. But I've explored, and I still do explore the physical side, so it's always fresh. That's the other thing that's important in creating tango dance. The way I was dancing, if you see video of me dancing 5 years ago, I would bet that it would be totally different to the way I dance now.
So take yourself back to, say, 98, 99.
Yes.
What advice would you give yourself then from your current self?
Yes, to something which wasn't possible, to get yourself a really good, at least one teacher, not necessarily one, but get yourself a really good teacher. Listen to as much tango music as possible, and then look at the grades of tango to get what tango, the essence of tango is. You know, the grades of tango. I used to watch Nevera, Gustavo Nevera, and Arce is just grades of tango, and of course Chicho Fumboli. It's just fabulous. So anyone starting out now, I'd say get yourself at least one good teacher, doesn't matter what style. Listen to as much tango music and look at the grades of tango, not because you want to dance like them, but you learn what good tango feels and looks like on the dance floor. They have the three I mentioned, they've got all the elements that I talk about. Perfect timing. There's no one else on earth that can dance on time like those guys. They're the most creative dancers, and their partners. I can't leave out their partners because and their partners do change, but they're always very, very high standard, their dance partners. That's what I would say.
So all the teachers that you have either been in contact with personally or via videos,
Yes.
Who has been the biggest influence on you?
Chicho Fumboli, actually. Initially I learned from videos that which were made by Osvaldo Soto, and his then partner. And he's dead now. He's brilliant. He's actually taught me elegance and timing. Wonderful. That's the other thing about tango. It has to be, the fluidity gives rise to elegance, and vice versa. If you're elegant, you also, the Argentina calls suave, to be smooth. So it was my initial Soto, Osvaldo Soto. But then it was Nevera, because Nevera really revolutionized tango, and in a way which was accessible to the non-Argentinians. If you look at his earlier videos, you'll see that he's actually was dancing beautifully, but was reinventing tango in a way which was authentic, but which was accessible to Americans and Australians and Europeans. And then later on, because Chicho came later, he was a very young man who was studied with Nevera, and it was exceptional from the very start. And I'd say now, if I wanted to see, and actually Sebastian Arce as well, but they came later, both Chicho and Arce. If you wanted to see contemporary masters, I'd look at one of those. There are lots of others, of course, but in terms of those who are pivotal to the history of Argentine tango as the progression from Soto, Nevera and others to the more modern contemporary, I look at those, the pedigree, that's what influences me. And even now, I'll just go and put on Chicho and I'll just be mesmerized. Chicho is the best one to look at someone who plays with timing. The elasticity of time. Chicho is master at slowing time down. Doesn't matter what the orchestra is doing. As a dancer, you can create your own. Or it doesn't often speed up, but it can. And timing is not linear in tango. So even when you step, you can start a step fast and then slow down, or vice versa. So there's a lot of things that you don't get from classes, you just get from experience. So Chicho is the one, and he puts his foot down. You can slow the video as much as you like. He puts his foot down precisely on time, and it's superb. So that's my influence.
And is that the means with which you continue to improve now, by watching video from people such
Absolutely.
as Fumboli?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, now given my, I don't know, perhaps I'm slowing down, or things have become a lot more distilled into simplicity, Tango is simplicity now. I'll work on a little thing like, how to just stretch my leg, the left or right, and I'll work on that for 6 months. Nothing like that. And no one notices on the dance floor. So I'll work on very simple things, and my posture, going both right and left, and I'll work on, just take one idea and I'll work on it for at least 6 months. And therefore in a year I would have introduced maybe 3 new things for me. They have to be versatile, because if you dance tango like I do, like a chess game, which is innovative each time. You need things that are adaptable to anything you want to do. So they are simple things, never a sequence. I never learn a sequence in my head. I break the sequence down, and then I will use different elements of the sequence, whatever it suits me. And the music tells you which bit to use, provided your body has been trained, your muscle brain memory is being trained to execute that particular move. And that's the other thing I would say to someone. After the gymnastics phase of your tango, learn little bits, because then your brain thinks fast, because you can execute like a cicada. If you don't think of it in terms of a sequence, but in terms of what it is, then you can execute that so fast, your brain, that you can use it creatively, and you can respond to your partner in your music without actually thinking. It just happens. You match things very, very rapidly. So for those who want to dance in a creative way, to distill movements to simple body movements, and then to forget that they are linked onto anything else. You know, the brain will do that for you. You know, if you can walk correctly, if you can do a spin, if you can do an about turn, you know, cambio di frente, whatever moves, you just think of the idea, and the body then does it. And it's a matter of how many combinations, permutations of the same move you can do. And the brain learns that, then you can put it together in a creative way.
Now, you used to teach tango. For how long, and why did you stop?
No, don't get me wrong. I have taught tango only because my partner, she was very keen to introduce tango to Malay and the region around Malay, you know, Montreal and to the Sunshine Coast. So for 5 years we taught tango there, and I enjoyed it, but you know, on university lecture I didn't really want to do more teaching, but I did enjoy it because I approached it from, I'm a dancer and I'm not a teacher, and I still do that. You know, people say, oh, do you teach someone? No. And also, I have never been paid for anything. So whatever money I got for that did not go to me. And in that way, I maintained the right attitude of tango. For me, right, I never wanted to be a teacher, so it's different. From other people, I got a different perspective. So I loved it, and I loved the communication. I loved people felt comfortable with my teaching because I knew how to execute the move, and I could see straight away things that would help them. So we did that for 5 years. Enjoyed it greatly, and to the credit of Annie and myself, that community is still very vibrant now. And those dancers in those classes are still dancing now, like almost 15 years ago. So that's a tribute. Yes. So to answer your question, I don't see myself as a teacher. I'm a dancer, and if someone wants me to show them something, I'll do it as a dancer, and that's it. You know, to me, tango is a personal, creative thing, and it's a way also of giving back to the community. But it's not a way of me. Teaching is not. It's something else that I do in another world. You know, at university, I lecture and I teach. In tango, I express myself, I innovate, and I communicate.
So you mentioned your university teaching a couple of times now. How does that affect your tango, or does it not?
I mean, being a research scientist gives you a very analytical approach, but at the same time, you've got to, the emotional side is indispensable in tango. So being a university lecturer gives me the discipline to organise, to communicate really well, to relate to an audience, you know, whether it's a single person or the whole dance floor, and you know, I DJ as well. So that's the way of me communicating with an audience. And my university training has really given me an enormous benefit from that angle. And being a scientist has given me the balance that you need in Tango to be analytical and to be expressive and creative. So it's been just a perfect marriage of left and right brain, as they say. So yeah, my university career. And also, Tango has balanced my life. You know, from the purely, I mean, science is very, very creative, but it's very solitary. And Tango is very solitary, but at the same time, it's you know, paradoxically, you're dancing with the whole community, but it's very solitary because you're only dancing for yourself. In the end, you're only dancing for yourself. You can't dance better than yourself. At least as a lead, you can't. Right? And that's the other paradoxical thing about Tango. You can only dance as good as you are, as a lead. As a follower, I think you can dance better than you are, because that's the trade-off that show. That's the equality and aspect of Tango. You know, you have the responsibility of leading, but you give up the chance to experience something you've never experienced before, because you only dance what you know. So you're only limited by yourself. But as a follower, in a way, they trade off, in a way, the initiative in dance. But in doing so, they can experience something which they never thought was possible with the right creative lead. And that's a whole new area of discussion. But certainly for me, that's an area that I'm very, very conscious of. You know, as you just mentioned, I'm a scientist, a lecturer, and that's given me the intellectual side. And Tango has given me, and the intellectual and the analytical side. And Tango's sort of balanced my life emotionally.
What has given you the biggest buzz in Tango so far?
So far, well, it's not. I don't know whether it's. For me personally, there's two ways to answer that. Dancing, when I've been dancing myself, dancing with most extraordinarily talented international teachers, and experiencing the enormous generosity and simplicity of these people that have sort of allowed me to free myself. You know, as a lead, you have to be very conscious, and you're never quite free because you're conscious of your partner. And often I feel, not because I'm a great dancer, but because often we're at different stages, I feel restrained. Well, the biggest buzz for me is being able to dance with a follower, there's one of these international teachers who are extraordinarily talented in every way, and you dance with it, and you realise that you can be free to whatever you do, they're with you. But at the same time, it's so simple. There's nothing complicated about dancing with them. They are there in the same space, physically, emotionally, musically, and to me personally, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest joy. The other biggest joy, I mean, the experience for me, is being able to give to the community through festivals or through organising events, to give them an experience which is beyond their imagination. Like they doubt that I could do it, I even doubt myself, but I know that I can. I push the boundary because I want them to experience, to be inspired by something that even they have not, I don't think they could have imagined that it could be could affect them so much, and to then show them, communicate, not show them, but communicate with them a little bit of what I see about Tango, about being using as inspiration for your life. So that's the two levels. Personally, we're dancing with someone where I'm totally free, and that's personally. And secondly, the biggest joy is for me to break my own expectations and give some of the community something which is not only, is good to watch and everything runs smoothly, but it is inspiring, where they just sort of gobsmacked, it's just an awesome feeling that they have. when they see these people and the way these teachers or whatever performers, what they can achieve through Tango.
Yeah, very nice. You often DJ.
Yes.
What enjoyment do you gain from being a DJ?
Yes, sharing my joy. It's all about joy when I DJ. If my milongas are ever not full of joy, then I think I'd give up. And that's what people feedback. That's why they come to my milongas. My milongas are always joyful. So joy, but how do I do that? Is simply by communicating with the audience. I always see DJing as it's like dance, once you know your moves, once you know the technicalities, that's the beginning, it's not the end. So you've got to know your music, and then what I do is I want to give the audience a particular experience that day, which I have in my mind. It could be the weather, it could be the way I feel. And then I start the milonga creating that experience. Could be I want them to be slightly more up-tempo, slightly more reflective in the music, but never to a point where they feel comfortable. That's the thing. Always make the dancers feel a little bit of challenge so that they are totally involved in the music when they dance. They must not be so easy that it becomes a routine to dance. In that case, that's not the way I DJ. So, it's joy, and to create an experience for that milonga, which is different from the experience of the previous milonga and the next experience of the next milonga. And that is the risk that a DJ takes. I want to create a feeling, I want to create an experience. And you can only do that on the spot by taking risks. So I don't have a playlist, I have tenders. And then I put tenders together according to how the audience and the dancers are responding, who's there, what level, the level of temperature, the time of day or night, and the end of the milonga tells me what I've been successful. If everyone is on the dance floor and they don't want to go home, then it's been a great milonga. That's really what I try to do. So, milonga DJing for me is like one organised festival. It's giving back to the community what they've given to me. A lot, giving back. They've given me a lot. If I can give back a fraction of that through DJing and experience, sharing my joy, and through festivals by sharing my vision, then to me that's what I do.
Very good. If you stop dancing right now, stop dancing tango right now, what would you do instead?
My God, that's a difficult question. Oh. What would I do? I have no plan to substitute tango with anything. What would I do? I would have to shift to some other creative enterprise. Whether it would be back to music, whether it would be some other creative process. But I would have to be creative. Certainly my scientific side is creative, but it's limited in what I can do now because I'm retired. But it would be a creative process. It wouldn't be art, but I think it would be back to music. And something which could be interactive with the audience, with people. So I'd probably be stay an organiser of some sort, whether it's stay in dance or not. But it definitely would be a creative field. But I've given no thought because in fact Tango is as fresh to me, as fresh to me now as he was in 1998, and that's always surprised me that I get up and I DJ or get up and dance, and it just feels fresh. It never feels like I've been here before. I don't know why that is, Daniel.
Well, the dance is always evolving, and you're evolving with it, so it's always changing.
Yes, I think it's a way. I think it's important to, like the rest of life, and tango. Some people do say, tango is sort of a microcosm of life. perhaps a more mature one, but it's a matter of staying open all the time and never taking your dance for granted. You know? And every time I get up on a dance floor, every dance is a new experience. I never say, oh, you know, thank God this is the third dance, or you know, it doesn't seem to happen. You know, so maybe it's like the rest of life. You've got to be totally open to new experiences and never be smug about your abilities. There's always lots of people who are better dancers than you. Never compare yourself, and just the openness and looking at other people and see how beautifully they dance. It just you know, all that brings joy to me, and I think all that together makes me, as you say, by changing all the time, you keep it fresh.
Yeah. Is there anything in Tango that you dislike?
I dislike. Maybe something that I dislike. Oh, not about the dance itself. It's about the culture that goes around the dance, but not about the dance. You know, let's break. It's a very good question. You know, when you think about Tango, people tend to confuse what they feel about Tango dancers with what Tango is. You know. When you dance with one-to-one with another human being, that is like a sacred experience, and I don't have any criticism of that, provided the other person doesn't carry resentments or attitudes that they've in their life to the dance floor, because that it really cuts you, because it's so intimate, you feel it, right? So if someone's got a bad attitude of some sort, or some resentment, or some resistance, you notice, and you can't dance Tango. I still dance, but it's not Tango. So when leaving that aside, on a one-to-one basis, I have no complaints about Tango. It's got the right balance of closeness, communication. It's close, but you maintain your personal space. Doesn't matter how close you are, you're still two individuals. You choose to cooperate. So I love that. Now, is there something I don't like about Tango? Then it goes to outside that. The way people interact, their attitude, the way they're trying to overlay social and political interpretations of Tango and what you do on the Tango floor, even if it's simple as asking each other to dance. There's a political and social overlay which can be unfortunate, you know. On the dance floor, there's a certain, again, it comes through different personalities. That is where, if anything, it doesn't irritate me often, but where things are evolving, it could be better, but Tango itself, on a one-to-one basis, is really unique. I mean, I don't know of any other dance form that. So the answer to that, no, I think Tango is got it right. Whether the music always, as it's evolving, always allows that perfect expression between the two individuals, whether it's man or woman, man, doesn't really matter, a follow and a lead. Whether the music always allows that, I'm not too sure. I mean, it's another long debate we can have. Whether at what level, at what stage in the evolution of Tango music, the music and the dance were the closest in terms of having the same vision and the same allowing the biggest, the largest expression, personal expression through the dance. Was it the early Tango? Was it, the golden age? To my mind, it's very likely. Pugliese later on. Now, as the music evolves, still answering your question, is that perfection of communication between a follow and lead, is that still possible? I'm not sure. All I know is that, like a lot of art, you don't know whether a particular art is any good if you're honest with yourself. unless it's stood the test of time. And even though some music doesn't, now talking about not the traditional golden age, but as it's evolved later on, you may think it doesn't allow the personal expression within the partners of tango. Surprisingly, I think it does, but I just don't know which form it's going to take.
Do you think that might depend upon the people that are dancing as to how that influences them or how they interpret that?
I think it's absolutely, but that's true with any dance. I mean, where the dances are culturally, emotionally, and musically is going to determine how they dance to a particular music. So, someone who's culturally and and emotionally does not relate to golden age, to that early D'Arienzo, is going to affect their dance because they can't emotionally respond to it. And someone who hasn't kept their mind open, getting back to the why everything appears fresh, haven't kept their mind open to the possibilities that there are musical expressions that are not, don't appear on the surface to be rooted in traditional, what they call traditional tango. Those people, I think, suffer as well because emotionally and musically they can't respond. They don't allow themselves. I shouldn't say they can't allow themselves. Then on top of that, there's a cultural overlay. There's no doubt that our culture, we've got lots of problems with personal space. So there's a political overtone about gender equality and misunderstandings about tango that just ruins the whole personal experience. But unless you want me to, you can discuss endlessly about this thing. It's part of the evolution of any music, any artistic form. And all I can say is time will sort out what sort of tango a particular community will evolve. It's going to evolve differently, whether it's in Munich or Berlin, and whether it's Sydney, Melbourne, over time, because these overlays of cultural sensitivities are going to infiltrate the tango as an art form and become God knows what. At the moment, I think it's roughly homogeneous, but there are these currents. That's as you know, of course, heated arguments. I'm beyond all that because I just think I've got my own personal sensitivities, but it doesn't say, I enjoy atonal music as much as Beethoven, but I prefer Beethoven at an emotional level. You see what I mean? But I don't want to cut any type of experiences out. That's what's going on in tango now. So you've got all these various layers. It makes tango very interesting. So is anything I don't like about tango? Well, the personal side, one-to-one, I love it completely. I think it's almost perfect form of personal expression. It's the what goes beyond that on the dance floor, what people take on the dance floor, the way the broader community, the way they are influenced by their musical heritage and their cultural and political attitudes will infiltrate tango. And you can't separate any of those. You just got to embrace the whole lot and do your own bit, cut out your own negativities and just dance the best you can with the person in front of you. If they've been nice enough to say yes, or you've accepted, that's it. You're committed. It doesn't matter, who they are, what music you're dancing to. You've got to let go of it.
Yeah. Talking about the Brisbane community specifically, what changes, if any, would you like to see take place here?
Well, first of all, since 1998, the evolution of Brisbane tango community has been very interesting because, it isn't just the fact that we started later than Sydney and Melbourne, but it's Queensland attitude to dance, Queenslander attitude to dance. Now, I'm a Melburnian, and I'm originally from Europe, but I know enough. Melbourne, Sydney. When I came to Queensland, the Queensland attitude to dance is different. It's different. It's a little bit more suspicious. Dance a little bit more uncomfortable, even with any type of dance. But then, when you introduce something which is very different from a Latin form of dance, South American or European, so we had that sort of initially that's what you have to do. So Brisbane has come a long, long way from that. Along the way, there have been certain sticking points. That was the first one. It was very, very fun. The other sticking point is that while Queenslanders, you've probably heard me say this before, while we are very proud of our sporting prowess, we actually don't want to be very proud about much else. We just want to be laid back and close enough is good enough. And being a bit of a perfectionist, that didn't sit with me very well. So getting to go through to a stage where I think now the Brisbane community has actually become very innovative, right? Getting from the stage where even dancing to something like Tango was very, very difficult from a Queenslander point of view, to where you think about it, we have very good malacas, very good DJs. We actually we had the first Tango orchestra in Australia, which was going to be called the Tango Orchestra, Tango Paradiso. We've had the longest running festival, that's in Byron Bay. We did it from Queensland. We probably have the most innovative things going on here than anywhere in Australia. We've introduced, art into festivals, and now everyone's got an artist. We made musicality and music as a centre of. So we come from really being very difficult from dealing with a foreign form of dance to being very innovative and leaders in Australia. And other states are recognising that now. We've done all that. If you think about it, apart from a certain school at the moment, and everyone's contributed there. But really, to be honest, we've never had, until very recently in Brisbane, dedicated professional Tango teachers until recently. Now that is an enormous, and I'm very, very proud of the Brisbane Tango community now, and certainly the small part that I play in, I'm very happy with that, and I'm very happy with the fact that we've not fragmented to a great extent. There have been difficult times. We are very cooperative community. So all that I can only speak very, very highly of the Brisbane Tango scene. We've actually had, headwinds in the past. That's a different story. Someone's been there from the beginning. I could tell you that, but we've surmounted those. So now we've got good standard of, in spite of not having professional dance until recently teachers, we've got very good standard. We've got very innovative music. We've got very innovative festivals, and we've got a forward-looking Tango community and very little infighting. Now that is an exceptional and augurs really, really well. And we're not insular anymore. We go everywhere. Brisbane dancers go to Buenos Aires, they go to Adelaide, every other city. I can't say that of other cities. And in the end, I think that's going to be really good for Brisbane Tango community. We are welcoming. So all those, starting from 1998 to now, 20 years, on reflection, we've done, coming from way behind, simply by being innovative and working at it, never being full of ourselves, being always humble. We've really now hit the forefront. I think in many respects, we are the leading community in Australia, and I'm happy to say that to anyone, Sydney or Melbourne. I think I'm pretty great. I think that would be great.
Yes, yes. So where do you see the Brisbane community in 2 to 3 years' time? Where will it be then?
Well, you know, the biggest problem, if we have a problem, is the loss of good quality dancers from our Tango community, because we're not very large. So the biggest challenge and I think not challenge, something which I'm sure we'll do. You know, it's like something which we'll naturally do because it's the next step, and because we are become a very confident community, and because you know the organisers, and I can't, you know, I'm not going to call them leaders. They organise whether they teach you. They're actually very cooperative. So we need to stop losing our good dancers to either out of Tango or they go into state. We need to appeal to the younger generation and give them something to aspire to in Tango as a lifestyle. You know, Brisbane needs to grow. It's like we've got all the innovation, we've got all the vision. We just don't have the critical mass yet, which will just, you know, you need a critical mass to really, it's like any enterprise, in order to inspire each other, in order to progress, because you support each other, you stimulate each other, you look at what each other's doing, and you've got someone to share your joy in the dance. I think that is been and still is the biggest. Brisbane bleeds from quality dancers and bleeds from and suffers from the lack of new generation dancers.
So what do you think can be done to inspire the younger generation to want to dance tango?
I've asked Argentinian people this, and it seems to be, it seems to be the critical element seems to be that young people need to see other young people do it. In Argentina, what turned the tide in, my grandmother or grandfather danced tango, I want nothing to do with it. To suddenly seeing one or two, classic, perhaps ballet trained, going to tango, and they were in their 30s, and all of a sudden, the young people say, "Whoa, we Argentinians, that's our dance," and there's another young person, this is just my grandparents doing. So that seems to be the critical thing, and why Brisbane hasn't made their critical step. Well, I think Sydney and Melbourne are ahead. That's got a way to go. I don't know. I think it's because we haven't promoted our own excellent teachers, dancers, in terms of allowing them to perform and exposing them to the wider community. And we haven't had those who teach, whether they're supported teachers or whether trained teachers, that are the right age group. We've got Jose and Mage, fantastic, but we need more of those, and we need a variety of them where the more young people can relate to them, just kind of one couple. So I think the critical step next is to show that Tango is a form of creativity, of self-expression, which isn't for those over 40, over 50, but is like young teenagers love free-form dancing, right? The jazz dancing or whatever, and they do that instead of classical ballet, and they need to see tango as being more like that, and to being a stylized form of dance like ballroom dance, which is stifles creativity. So that's the transition we need to make. We need to make tango part of the creative arts and not part of the nightclub dance or the ballroom dance. Tango is part of the creative arts, which is open from high school or lower to any age group. So you ask me where, and if Brisbane can do that, I think that would be wonderful. And I mean, I'm sure we'll do it in some way, but you know.
So what can people in the community do to help foster that?
Yeah, well, I think it's up to the organisers, to people like me, to do sneaky things like I've been doing so far, to, you know, encourage and support those who take new initiatives, because it's really hard in a community for new ideas, for new people to come in an established, you know, house structure, if you could call it that. Organisation structure is more correct. So I think it's got to come in two ways. One, either from one who's already an organiser, or an organiser sees some opportunity to allow some of these new blood to come through, this new vision, even though the rest of the community may disapprove of it initially. Well, I've seen that before. So you know, I've been keeping my eyes open, you know, and we do have several younger people. As soon as I see those who are capable, they've got, you know, they've got the drive, they're very subtly support. So why don't you do this? And or why don't you dance for us and do more of that? And then the next step is to, like you're doing, have something on your school website where it gets to social media, and then the wider community gets to hear about it. I think it's the way to go. You know, in the 21st century we can't, but things happen fast. So if we do that, we could get a turnaround and an enormous influx of young people within 3 to 5 years. But you know, the teachers have to be ready. You can't, you know, be conventional about the teaching thing. You've got to put yourself in the mind of a modern day teenager with, as I said before, with a cultural, political and musical background, and say, what do I understand from their point of view? How do I get from where they are to where I think what Tango is? So once you get the opportunity to meet people, then it's up to the teachers to take advantage of it. I mean, as the teacher, I can adapt. You know, I can see straight away what they respond to, and I have. I used to play more rebel. Now I play less because that's where the community is. You know, you can only lead so much and show new ways, but in the end, you'll have to move with your community. A little bit ahead, but not too much. So as soon as young people come in, then the rest of us will respond. So I don't know whether that's answered your question. There's no easy, but there are certain pointers from the way other communities have done it. If you ask me, how does Berlin do it? You know, how do these European cities? I just don't know how they managed to get so many young people to dance tango. I don't know. Maybe the Europeans are more responsive to tango from their own cultural background. You know?
And maybe it's the age. I mean, they've been dancing longer, and the young people have had more time.
More time. You know, in Germany, the other thing is in Germany, I mentioned Germany because they're an exceptional example of a progressive, just embrace tango. But the number of young people you know, post-war, Germany is a young country, full of young people, and I think that may have something to do with it. You know, it's a young country. After the Second World War, they had to start again, and it's young people who have given the drive to the nation. We haven't had that sort of experience anymore. I don't know. It's just speculation, but you know, David, maybe I've been surprised with the changes Brisbane has made. You know, I whinge like everyone else, but I'm not going to do it here. But overall, the whinging isn't. It's like a lull before the next step. But I'm pretty certain that Brisbane, it'll happen, and when it happens, it'll happen quite quickly. So yeah. Anyway, I'm looking forward to, you know, being a dodgy guy and dancing with, you know, a variety of ages.
Of all the places you've travelled to dance tango, Conrad, what is your favourite city in the world?
I mean, Buenos Aires is an experience, and it's a must, but as an experience. You know, I have to say that I thought Seattle was the best experience I've had in terms of dance. But it's not a question that I could answer honestly, because it's not like I've danced in every city that I've been. And you know, if I dance in Paris, really, New York, etc., I'd have a good comparison. I'd sort of say that some of the American cities have got attitudes that are most similar to ours. The European cities have got their dancing is more refined, is more responsive, but they're a bit more reserved, I think, in that way there. So it's a different experience. I personally prefer the openness of in terms of the community of the Americans, but it's only a personal thing. So I can't answer that honestly in terms of it's a very personal experience. But I make a final comment that actually every continent now has got really been pushed to say that one's better than the other. I mean, you pick New York, San Francisco, Berlin, you know, and Madrid, the Scandinavian countries, Holland, and Buenos Aires is an experience, but any of those cities, Sydney, Melbourne, and you're going to have a really good tango experience. And that is very interesting because it is a universal language. In spite of what I said before, that each country, each community is slowly evolving its own feel of tango, but at the moment, it's very homogeneous. You can walk into any community and you feel that you can dance, provided you've got breathing skills, you're acceptable, you know what they're on about, you can understand the music, and even though the language may not be the same, you can dance. So that's the best dance I can give.
Okay. What's the worst advice you've seen dispensed in tango?
Yes, always that this is the right way to do tango and this is the wrong way. I think that's been the worst, and it happens all the time. Okay, that there is only one way to actually dance tango, whether it's a move, whether it's holding, whether it's the way to put your foot, it's wrong. I've seen teachers do it. I've been physically ruined by early proponents who knew nothing about who were learning along the way, just like we were. No blame, but it was wrong. And honestly, I now have a sore shoulder and right hip. It's because being an art form, there isn't just one way. And the good teacher will say that this is the way we interpret this particular move, this particular thing. So the worst thing is in tango is when a teacher, not so much other dancers, say this is the way to dance tango. Now that's very interesting because there are limits to what tango is, and beyond that, well, it's not tango. But I don't know whether you can define it so precisely, the boundaries. All you know, there's areas of grey, and it's only a matter of time the dancers will learn to dance more creatively. They will physically not be damaged. They will look better, more elegant, as the techniques are refined. The grey area becomes clearer. That's all I can say. So that's the worst thing. And our dancers giving advice, which is black and white, to other dancers is simply no. And right, don't do it.
How has tango affected your non-tango relationships?
Do I have non-tango relationships? Oh, I think that I didn't think it was possible. Well, I just didn't think. Let's be honest. And like most people, you don't think that there is an activity that you can do. And for most of us, we do it with someone of the opposite gender, opposite sex, that is so cooperative, and it's so free, and it's so wholesome at an emotional level, and we just don't think that Tango is it, and I was not aware of that. So once that brings into my life a certain level of inner peace, and I'm actually, we always tend to have social abrasiveness, where we feel a little bit tense, a bit hurt, especially by relationships with the opposite sex or whatever. Well, I'm a little bit more understanding, forgiving, and grateful that my relationships, especially in my case with women, absolutely, because I just think it's so special that you give them the opportunity to express themselves and vice versa. We just get so few things in our society which go beyond stereotyping of male, female, gender activities, gender roles. And Tango is, in spite of what I said earlier on, is one of the most freeing things, simply because, regardless of who leads and who follows, it's free. If you're not free, if you don't freely give, you're not dancing Tango. So that affects the rest of my life. It really does. It makes me more compassionate about myself, more embracing of other people, and I'm not an angry person anyway, but I see even less reason to be unhappy about my life. So yes, that personally I can tell you that Tango has saved me thousands, perhaps even tens of thousands of dollars in psychiatrist visits. No, it's just so healing. It is so healing. And gives you a chance about meditation. Your mind quietens down when you dance Tango. If your mind doesn't quieten down, you're not dancing Tango, something else is going on. Yeah. And I know people who are now close to me whose life has been transformed from very unhappy, not unhappy, just unsettled people into the most, really, really contented. And also those who have remained a little bit with sharp edges. Strange enough, the Tango has not seemed to have evolved. So it works both ways, You have to emotionally be open in order for Tango to do its magic. And if you have this emotional resentment in some way about the dance, about yourself, about your external relationships, you can't let go, then your Tango also suffers, and you won't be able to progress, and they tend to be unhappy. They go around to it, they go away from Malonga's sake, I think they want this and dance, etc. It's because they're emotional, they're not open. I don't know how to get them to open up, but Tango works both ways, If you Tango, it improves your outer life, and if you allow yourself to let go of some impediments to your outer life, it improves your Tango.
Very good. All right, a few quick fire questions to finish.
Yep.
What is an indulgence for you?
Indulgence? Oh my God, what is an indulgence? What in Tango, you mean?
Anything.
Dancing with some of my favourite dancers, and I'm not going to say who they are, but that's indulgence, because normally I either run them along or I just dance to it. But if there are some dance partners that I can feel almost totally free. That is a final indulgence. The right partner with the right music, right, at the right time. It's just, to me, that's it.
And do you have a favourite Tango movie?
Movie is the first one, the Tango lesson. I tell you what, it really was the one that for me personally, brought Tango I did see it in 1998 in San Francisco. And even though I was aware of Tango was just in its infancy there. And even though it's not a good film, even the Tango isn't that great because the main actor is a ballet dancer. But it was a great film because it captured some of the essence of Tango. Sure, it played up to the romance, to the passion, to the the hysteria, if you like. But to me, that was the pivotal film for me that is stuck in my mind. And the opening scene where that's one of the greatest tangos, by Troilo, is just wonderful. And to this day, I still play that particular tango. It's just the music in that the tango lesson was wonderful because it went from the very traditional darienzo, of course, the El Flete, which is one of the ones they all pensalo bien, which means think about it carefully, which is the scene where he has broken her heart and she's dancing with a very bad English dancer, and that song is on. Think about it carefully. Think about what you're doing. Beautiful music. That film went from the traditional to Piazzolla in one film. So introduced the musical side, the whole history of tango from the early days right up to Piazzolla. So that to me, that is the best tango film for tango, not as a film, right?
And is there a composer that you most prefer to dance to?
Yes, Pugliese. Pugliese to me is being of Italian background, Pugliese his music is like opera, it's dramatic, it's passionate, unpredictable, always tells a story, never relaxes you, makes you cry and laugh in the same song, in the same track. So Pugliese for me is absolutely captivating. The hair on my back of my neck just goes, as soon as I hear Pugliese, that guy has got the lot. So that's not to, I love a lot of other composers, but what gets to me is Pugliese.
Is there any music you dislike dancing to?
Yes, I tell you, I must, it's not that I dislike to it, I got limited tolerance for it. And that is Kajenke, the very early tango precursor, some really early Canaro. Who's the other composer in that genre? Filippo. No, not really. It can get a little bit boring. Some of the really early tango, I can only take one or two tangos maximum. But that's very, very. There's nothing. It's not that I dislike it. I've got limited tolerance for it, and that's it. Note that I didn't say nuevo.
Good.
I'm always open to new experiences. Always. And this old music that I'm busily saying, I can't take too much. When you take some of the old, some of the early darienzo, which can also be, or even Disabli, early Disabli, which is like Gajenka style, they are rediscovered and it sounds fresh, and so even some of that music is wonderful. It's just you just got to get the right music for the right time.
What music do you listen to when not tango?
Oh, jazz. I love jazz, and I love mainstream and modern jazz. Miles Davis, I'll listen to that. Brubeck, and even singers, female jazz singers. I really like them, and that's what I listen when I'm not listen to tango. And I like flamenco, a lot of flamenco, and soft flamenco, not really hard necessarily. Those are just good to listen to. A guy called Jesse Cook, I like a lot at the moment. I listen to a lot of him. And Otmar Liebman is not around yet. I mean, he's still alive, but his music is not that popular anymore. Sort of soft Latin, flamenco cross. So jazz, that's what I listen to. You know, I love classical as well because I'm classically trained. But at this stage of my life, I do listen to it. I love Mozart, some of the more modern composers, Ravel. I like his stuff a lot. If you ask me what I listen to,
Yes.
rather than what I like, that's at the moment. It's got to be jazz and this sort of soft flamenco style.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Conrad. It's fabulous. Once again, thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Very good.